Good morning, everybody. It is a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It is raining. I finally remembered to bring my hat so that I can stop looking like a wet cat. Anyway, this is another entry into my car chronicles, into a video a day in May. Shout out to my May babies, my fellow Taurians. Happy birthday and what's up? Anyway, so since it's really getting close to my birthday, and I've been thinking about my life in general. Like, I really don't believe that the new year for most people starts on January 1st. Like, I celebrate it, of course, and I'm grateful to be able to see the calendar turn to another year, but I really believe that your new year starts on your birthday. So my new year is coming up, my new advent, my new flip, I guess. Turning 50 is a blessing, and so I certainly am grateful to have the privilege of being able to do so. Having said that, I've been thinking a lot about my childhood and growing up and all those kinds of things, and I've been thinking about things that I used to like to do and yada yada yada. So that's why y'all gonna hear my favorite Stephen King novels today. I have no idea why I want to do this. I actually did it for my Facebook page a while ago, but I was thinking about, I was like, I need to blow the dust off of some of these books. Like, seriously, there used to be a time when you would never catch me without a book. Like, I always had a book tucked up under my arm. I would drift off somewhere. Nowadays, of course, because, with technology being what it is and people have their Kindles, and do people still buy Kindles? I mean, I have one, but I don't even think the thing's still turning on. Anyway, so, people have their Kindles and their iPads and their Nooks and there are e-readers and all that kind of stuff. And so, there's a certain thrill for me to be able to go into a bookstore and just hold a book. There's something about, the bindings and turning pages and, getting engrossed in a book and using actual bookmarks. Gosh, I'm just such but those are things that make me happy. Anyway, so my favorite Stephen King novels. Now, first of all, I became introduced to Stephen King, I want to say middle school. I can't even really remember. I do remember running across one of his books. I think my mother had it, and it was called Skeleton Crew, and that was like the beginning of the end for me. So Skeleton Crew was a collection of short stories, and there were two particular stories in there. Now, I'm probably not going to get the names right, but there was one called Survivor Type or something like that, and it was about, I believe that he was a doctor, and he was also a pilot. He was also a drug carrier, drug smuggler. He had pounds and pounds of drugs on this aircraft, crashed on this island. Nothing's on this island. He's miles away from everywhere, so he's trying to figure out how to get off this island, build things. What is he gonna do? Gilligan minus just by himself. So he messes around and fractures, I want to say, his leg. So now he's hobbling around. The thing is bulging. He realizes that he's got to amputate this foot, because if he doesn't, it's probably gonna kill him. So he dopes himself up on cocaine or whatever he was smuggling and proceeds to cut off his own foot. Then he eats it because he was starving to death. The rest of the story is very clearly a descent into madness, which Stephen is pretty famous for that, in my opinion. People start off perfectly lucid, and then by the end of the book, you just don't know what happened. They need medication, and so do you, child. So that was the first book, the first story. Then there was the story, why do I want to call it Monkey Shine? I have no idea. But the cover of the book was like one of those mechanical monkeys with the symbols, which the thing just looks creepy. So it just looks, every time I think about that in my mind's eye, I'm like, God, that thing was just creepy. But it's kind of a updated version of the Monkey's Paw, if you're familiar with that. That story. It's just wishes gone wrong. Just it's a give and take. Stephen's themes for a lot of his books are the balance of good and evil, the presence of yin and yang, that there's always a balance to something. A lot of his books have that thing to it if you really pay attention. and how if you have one thing that gives, you have to have another thing that takes. And that was, you know, pretty much the central theme of that particular story, up to and including somebody coming back from the dead, y'all. Speaking of coming back from the dead, the second book will be Pet Cemetery, for obvious reasons. Now, you know, Pet Cemetery, the book had some dry spots, but there were, you know, times where it was like super engaging. Of course, I, like everybody else, watched the original movie and love Lil Gage with his little bad seed self. They've remade it, and I keep hesitating as to whether or not I actually want to go and see it, because I've heard that they've done some changes. And so instead of Gage dying, the sister dies. Sorry if I spoiled that for anybody, but I mean, y'all know some child was gonna die. Anyway, I don't know if I want to see that, because I like things that stay very close to the actual story, like very close to, like, don't take creative license. I'm sure though Stephen would have had to have approved, hopefully he did, that change, and I don't know if that affects like other things in the story, so we'll see. I was very sad about that. The other book would probably be Gerald's Games. Even though Gerald Games, honestly, I got halfway through that book and shut it because it was just so dark. Like, it was the first time that I had ever read a Stephen King novel, and the skin on the back of my neck just stood up, or hair, or whatever it is the saying is. Like, it just, like, I just felt like I was being watched. It was just a dark presence, and I did not like it at all. You know, of course, a lot of times your mind playing tricks on you, but I trust my intuition. So when I felt like it was just dark, I put that mess down. I did not read it. I didn't finish reading that book in probably for like 10 years, and didn't read anything by Stephen for that period of time. I don't even know what he put out. I'd have to go back and look. But I did resume reading it. I finished it, and I do want to say that there are some themes in that book that could serve as a trigger. So I want to warn you guys, you know, if you have history of childhood abuse or childhood molestation or things of that nature, rape, you know, those kinds of things, you might want to take some caution, some care reading that book, because it can serve as a trigger, and I think that, you know, people should know that. The next book, of course, for obvious reasons, would be Christine. You know, like, how can you not love a demonic car? That car loved her some Arnie. I do wish, though, that we could have found out exactly how Christine came to be, right? Like, she just always was. Like, she just always was evil. She always, you know, was the jealous girlfriend personified in the car, jealous, crazy girlfriend personified in the car. But we never quite knew why Christine, or how Christine came to be. Like, did somebody die in her, like in a crash, and fuse together her spirit with the car spirit? I have no idea, but it really would have been nice to kind of know that story. But then again, maybe, you know, it's just all about your intuition, and, you know, how you feel and how you develop that character in your head, and where she came from, and, you know, how she came to be. The next book would be The Stand. Now, I will say, of course, I saw, it wasn't even a movie, child. It was so long, it had to be a mini-series. But the book itself is very long. And there's a lot of superfluous things in the book that, of course, weren't reflected in the miniseries, because while I don't think that it took anything away from the story, it was just like extra. But The Stand is about, you know, the government, as per usual, doing stuff that they don't have no business doing. They created this super virus in a lab. Somebody was careless, and the thing got out. The virus got out, killed everybody, because the virus was airborne in that way. It was like really a biochemical kind of weapon. The symptoms, well, actually, the people in the lab just died. So this guy on the base, because it was like a military base, okay, you know, he's sitting in the watchtower, security guard, you know, he's looking at the videos, and he sees everybody is dead. So he's no fool. So he was like, yeah, forget this. Well, the base was designed to shut itself down and to contain any contaminants that might leak, because they were messing around with all this mess. So the base starts to close itself, you know, wall itself off as per, you know, design. The guard realizes this, hops in his car, barrels off the base, you know, out this gate, runs home, you know, tells his wife, we got to go. So he throws the wife and child in the car, you know, hightails it across country lines, city lines, state lines, till he couldn't drive anymore. Gets to this little tiny town, and there's some locals that's sitting outside, like literally a tiny town with like 2 gas pumps and, you know, like Andy Griffith style. At least in my head, that's the way it looked. And the locals are sitting outside. They see this car approaching. It's not stopping, you know. They like, turn off the pumps because this fool is gonna crash. And he did. They run out, you know, like, what is going on? Open up the door. The wife and kid are dead. And the man is holding on for dear life, you know. And he manages to croak out some portion of what happened. But, you know, being a small town and not quite understanding, they're like, what? So then began this incredible story of, you know, this super plague that had been unleashed on the Americas, on the world actually. And because it was airborne, you know, people were coming down with it. It mimicked the flu. It started to kind of lose its potency. So instead of dying immediately, you know, you would hang around for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks or whatever, be sick and then die. In that time, people discovered that they were immune to it. And that's where the story really kind of takes a turn and a twist. So, you know, these people with immunity really discovered that they had, you know, kind of like a greater good, which of course, like I said, is Stephen's thing, you know, the battle of good and evil. And that's definitely what The Stand is about. And then lastly would be Dr. Sleep. Now, I was hesitant to read this book because, well, disappointment. It is a follow-up to The Shining, and I felt like, how in the world can you beat The Shining? Like, what do you do after The Shining? Like, what's going on? So Dr. Sleep is actually the son of Crazy Man in The Shining. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now, because of course all I see is Jack Nicholson, and that was not his name. Anyway, so it's the son of the caretaker and his wife from The Shining, and he grows up and he discovers that he doesn't grow up and just, you know, remember, if you remember the book or the movie, he always had these supernatural powers. He always had, you know, the ability to see things and to hear things and to feel things. You know, he was clairvoyant in that way, and he was also able to channel different energies and different entities. And that's where we pick up as an adult that, you know, he's kind of sort of not really with that. Like, he don't really feel like he's supposed to be doing that, but he does it anyway, and with amazing results. So I want y'all to check that out. Anyway, those are my top 5 Stephen King books. Maybe I'll do my movies next so y'all can just see how weird I actually am. Y'all have a wonderful day. I will talk to y'all later on. Bye.